What if I told you that it's people, not process, that help companies get their technology in front of the department? Well, it's true. There's never been a process that wasn't designed by people, and it's people that are pushing every aspect of the process along the way. So how do you find the people? In government speak, I'd say, how do you find your champion inside the department? I think it's a little bit easier than it would be in other places because the government is actively doing outreach. But what makes it challenging for units is that there's so much government outreach. There's so many different groups, and then the Department of Defense is so large, it's hard to know who that person or that champion really is. And then layer on the fact that if it's a military person, they're likely going to move in the next couple of years because they move around assignments to help develop their careers. If it's someone inside the government, like a contracting officer or program manager, they could very easily move from program to program. And all of a sudden, that champion you thought you had for your technology is now somebody new. That is a real problem, and it's something that you have to contend with. It's just a fact of life. People are always going to change and move. But if you develop good relationships and your technology is explained in a way that it can be applied to many different problems, not just a single problem, or it's solving a common problem that you're going to have in many different offices or many different units, you will find that as you develop those relationships with your champion, they will actually carry your technology from program to program to program. I can tell you that when I was in the government, I found companies when I was with AFWorks earlier on in my career that I thought did a bang up job. They were phenomenal. They were great. They did great facilitations. They did great technology, whatever the product was that I was using. When I left AFWorks and I moved to the digital transformation office, I brought all those same companies with me, and they were my first awards that I was able to do in the digital transformation office. When I left the digital transformation office, got promoted to go to the CDAO, those are the same companies that I brought with me along the way because I knew what they could deliver. They've never let me down before, and we had the same problems. One of the problems that each organization had was they were relatively new and needed to base on a culture. Or in the CDAO's case, it had a toxic culture that needed to be corrected. We had problems of outreach. We had problems of collaboration. We had all sorts of different issues that you have to, solve when you get to a new office or any type of program office. But these problems are common across the offices. So when I would go in, I would identify what are the common problems I have, what are things that I know I've already tried and processed in the past. I've already got a relationship with these companies. How do I bring them over to go do this new work? I was the champion. I can tell you when I left government, when I told people through my LinkedIn posts I was going to take the deferred resignation plan or program and move out of government, the number of companies that reached out to me, just devastated that I was leaving, was massive. I put one LinkedIn post out and I had over 100 companies reach out to try to work with me and hire me based on one post saying that I was leaving. And the reason for that was I was a champion for a whole bunch of companies. Because if I found good tech that I knew worked and I knew I could trust the companies to deliver in a timely manner, I was going to keep going back to them. That's human relationships. That's human nature. I want to do something that I know is going to give me the results, and I have only so much time. My time is always limited. So how did I find these companies that I ended up championing, and how the companies find me, more importantly? Well, I would find them through different outreach programs, through industry days, and through engagement. And it was always the companies that didn't try to sell me stuff. They were companies that tried to help solve my problem. Full stop. Now, how did these companies attack me and find me? I think they were going down the same traditional approach as most companies. They didn't know how to get in front of the end user. They would go to industry days. They would go to things like AFWorks Challenge workshops. They would go and engage in every form of fashion that they could. And in many cases, they probably just got lucky because they saw me speak on stage, they saw me speak somewhere else, and they would come and speak with me afterwards. But they had to be there to do that. They had to see me. They had to be out in the ecosystem to find me. And I think that's the real key. You have to make yourself available in the community. You have to find a way to see the people that are moving and shaking. I can't tell you how many events I go to, be it an AFA, Air Force Association event, or down at South by Southwest, any of these different events that the government has a presence at, I would see the same set of government people time and time again. These people are the ones that are hustling. They found ways to find funding to travel on, which is not easy in the government. They were able to convince their bosses to send them to an event like South by Southwest or the Consumer Electronics Show. Those are big time events. Sometimes they have big price tags with them, but they were able to get their leadership chain to understand the value of their presence at those events with all the great technology vendors. So you can already have a nice indicator that these people are the movers and shakers in government and are going to be able to help shape requirements so that you will be able to have a better chance at getting a contract award for your product or service. So go to the South by Southwest, go to the Consumer Electronics Show, go to any type of mass event that you know the government's going to participate in, and identify those government people at those events. Who's there? Go to the booths. You'll see a lot of small business, AFWorks, AFRL, the Department of Defense groups. They will all have different booths at these events. They'll have a government track. Go spend time, see who's speaking at these things, and take notice of the people that show up at event after event after event. These people are going to be your friends, and they are the movers and shakers. Even if those people get moved to a unit that has nothing to do with your product or service, don't lose the relationship. You have to stay engaged, because those champions will eventually boomerang back into an acquisition org. They will eventually find their way back to something that does matter. Or they might leave government and be a person that you want to hire for your company in the future. I can tell you the relationships that companies have made with me have been massively valuable for them, because I controlled access to a whole bunch of government dollars and I helped shape requirements when I was in the department. Now that I'm outside of the department, I don't have the same ability to control mass amounts of government requirements, but I still have relationships to my former federal workers, or my old friends, not my former federal workers, the current workers in the Department of Defense, and they can help shape requirements. The number of people that call me and ask me for advice on how to go buy a thing or how they should shape the requirement is massive. Because I was a player in the ecosystem for so long, my name is still well known amongst these people, so I'll get asked how to go buy things. When that happens, I shape those requirements to go support the products and services that I know will work. What are the solutions or the techniques to go after some of these projects? I know they work. So that's what I'm telling these people. The companies that supported me and built those deep relationships with me, a decade ago, I'm still recommending those companies today because I know their products and services work. So that should tell you how important it is to build enduring relationships with entities and with individuals inside the government. Now, you can't go pay government workers. Government workers can't accept even meals. They can't accept taxi rides. There's a whole bunch of rules for government workers because they have to make sure they're not under undue influence. But there are things you can do to make their lives better. So if there's an event or something that's going on, you can make sure that they have easy access into the event. You can take on the burden of figuring out tickets or other things. If they're going to be speaking at an event, you can make sure that their panels well attended. You can support them, and that's non-monetary stuff. You can't pay for them or pay stuff for them, but you can definitely support them and talk with them afterwards, spend time with them, get a reservation at the nice restaurant. Government persons also pay, but look, you were able to get them in. So there's all these little things that are in the gray zone of the rules, but they completely work, and you have to do to help build relationships, because time is necessary for the relationship. If you can get the government person's time, you can start building a relationship, learn about their family, learn about what they're into, learn about what their past career is, what their aspirations are for their current career. This is how you cultivate a champion inside the government. Now, once you have that champion cultivated, they may not know how to leverage their newly found superpower for you. Don't be afraid to give them advice and techniques on how they could leverage the relationship. So that could be encouraging them to go after a pot of funding that exists that they might not be aware of. There's a stuff called Defense Acquisition Workforce Development Account, DATA funding. That's for training purposes. It's for the last couple of years been available every year. Most government guys don't know about it, but some companies do know about it because they might have been funded on that funding line before. If unit is very interested in you, or that champion of yours is interested but they can't find funding, don't be afraid to get creative with them and think through, what are the funding buckets we could use to pay for this, and how can we shape the requirement to fit the funding that's available? Sometimes the funding might be O&M funding, 1 year money, sustainment funds. Maybe the funding is research and development funding that's available, or training funds. You have to be able to quickly reshape what you're offering to fit the funding that's available, and then coach your champion up on how they go advocate for that project and for that funding. So if you're interested in learning ways to do this at a much more detailed tactical level, please reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Vince_Pecoraro. If you like this video, please subscribe, and we'll have more content for you. Thanks. Have a great day.